Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Shubham and in this video we are going to cover Ngrx store reducers. So what are reducers and what they are responsible for? So reducers are responsible for handling transitions from one state to the next state in your application. To understand this, let's revisit our example. So we were having a cart state which was initially consisted of product 1 till product n. And when we have performed an action known as add products, the task of reducer is to actually add a new product to the product state. So say we have a product n plus 1 and we need to actually add it to the cart state. So that's what reducer does. And if you want to remove product from our state, the task of the reducer to remove the product when we have actually performed an action known as remove products. And when we perform an action known as change quantity, it's the task of reducer to actually go and look in the cart state for the product for which we want to change the quantity. So now how reducer handles this kind of functions. So reducer handles this kind of transitions depending upon our actions type. So say we have an action known as add product. So what reducer will do, it will basically add the product in our cart state. If we have performed an action known as remove products, it will actually go and remove that product from the cart state. And if you want to change, if you have performed an action known as change quantity, our task of reducer is to actually go and change the quantity of a product in the cart state. Okay, so now what reducer functions are, what kind of reducer functions are. So reducer functions are basically pure functions. That means, so if you have given any specific input, it is going to produce the same output. So it's kind of a deterministic in nature. So what is non-deterministic? Non-deterministic functions are those functions which can produce for a given input. You cannot predict the values that a functions have produced. Say for example a random function. Okay, so random is a non-deterministic function, but in the case of a pure function are deterministic functions, and they're always going to produce the same value for the same input. Say for an example, and we are running an application, right? So it doesn't matter how many number of times we ran an application. Say for example our initial state was our initial cart state was containing product from 1 to n, and whenever we added a new product in it plus 1 for an action add products, it's going to add that product. It doesn't matter how many times we are going to run the application and how many times we are going to perform the add product action. Now reducer functions are without side effects. What does it means? Okay, so if you look at it, reducer function are only handling the products. So these are the products from 1 till n. It's not doing anything else rather than adding product to the product state, removing product from the product state, and actually changing the quantity of a product in the product states. It's not changing the value of any variable in a component, or it's not producing the next value for an observable, or it's not changing the any value in a service. The function of reducer is purely restricted to the state or purely restricted to the task which it is performing, right? So those functions are functions without side effects, and it it handles state transitions synchronously. So what does it means? So say for example, we have 3 actions: 1 add products, 1 remove products, and 1 change quantity, and these actions are performed one after another. Say add products, remove, and then remove products, and then change quantity of the products. So in an asynchronous function, chances are like that remove products will change the value of the products array first, and then add products will do that. So reducers doesn't work in that way. First, if you have performed an action known as add products, so a product will actually add it to the cart first. If you have performed an action known as remove products, after the action add products, then the remove product action will be called the second, and similarly the change quantity action will be called third. So what reducer, how are reducer functions? So reducer functions basically perform when any action has been dispatched. It takes the current state and determines whether to return a newly modified state or the original state. Okay, so the example that we have drawn here, let's first see how our cart state will actually look like in the application. So like we discussed, whenever we are using Ngrx store in any application, we can manage multiple states. So in this example, we are managing two states, one is the cart state, another is the wish list states. Okay, so we don't need to have multiple store in an application for managing multiple states. So basically, a store will look like an object. Okay, so this is an object. Okay, and here we are managing two states, one is the cart state, one is the wish list state. So here we will be having a cart, and another will be a wish list as an object in the actual global store. And what cart is doing? I mean, cart is actually managing products. Okay, so here we will again be having products, which will be an array of product. Okay, and since wish list is also managing products, wish list will also be containing products. Basically an array of products. So this is basically how our store will look like, which contains two states. One is the cart state, another one is the wish list state, and the cart state is managing products and the wish list state is also managing products. Now, I mean, like we have previously discussed in our previous tutorials, like we were having three actions: one, add product, remove product, and change quantity. And this was the actual implementation of the actions, where for the add product we were actually dispatching the product that needs to be added, and for the removal of product we can actually pass the actual product, or we can actually pass the product ID depending upon how the implementation goes, how it's suitable for you to implement, or you can pass the actual value in the constructor. I mean, you can pass any value type in the constructor, any nested label, any complexity of the object you can pass. And yeah, and similarly the other action was and the update quantity of the product, and here also we are passing, I mean, we can pass actually a product, or we can actually pass the product ID for which the quantity has to be changed, and also the actual quantity, the number of quantity that's supposed to be changed. And we were actually exporting all the actions, making a union of it in a variable known as the product actions. Okay, so let's visit how our reducer will look like. Okay, so first thing first, I mean, for any state, I mean, like here we wanted to manage the cart state. Okay, we need to have an initial state. I mean, so how initial state will look like? I mean, like we discussed, we have product 1 till n in the initial state, but you can keep products array as an empty array. Okay, so here we are defining a state known as the initial state, which is containing actually the products, and it is actually an empty array of products array. Okay, now what our reducer function is taking, so we have defined a function known as the product reducer, which is actually taking our initial state and assigned to a variable known as state. So initial state is nothing but a products array in an object, and it's also taking a second parameter as an action. Those are the product actions, and these are the actual actions, those product actions that we have defined, basically the add product, the remove product, and the update product. Okay, now depending upon the actions type, I mean, the functionality of reducer actually changes. So we have a switch statement. An action will whenever a reducer receives an action, I mean, it has basically a action type that we can fetch using the action.type property. And also, if you have passed any payload is nothing but in the constructor, if you have passed anything, so here we are passing product and say product or the product ID, here also product ID, product quantity, or the product. So also you can take those parameters from the action itself. Say for example, in the change quantity, you can take from the action product ID, because it would have been, and the action dot quantity, because it would have been invoked using this constructor rather than this constructor. If it have been invoked using this constructor, you need to actually take from the action dot product, and the product will actually containing the product ID and the product quantity. Okay, so I mean, in the action you can actually take the constructor parameters, and you can also take the action dot type. Okay, so if the action dot type is add product, what we are doing, we are basically adding a new product to the products array. Okay, now how we are supposed to do that? The question comes. Now what we are doing here, we are actually doing a copy. We are making an array dot from state dot products. So this is state nothing but initial state. It's an object which is containing products array. So we are making a copy of the products array. Okay, so it's advisable to make a copy of the products array rather than actually going and changing that state dot products dot push and actually adding the new product that you want to push to the initial state. But not doing that and making a copy of it makes sense. I will tell you later why it makes sense. Okay, so first thing that you need to do is actually make a copy of the the initial state of the array that is going to be modified, and then actually from the action whatever values we have passed, we are actually making a new product out of it. So as you can see, we are having a new product from the action dot product, the product ID, product name, and the product quantity. We are creating a new product, and in the copy of products that we have just made, we are pushing the new product that we have actually created as of now. And this is a new state. I mean, how we can create a new state? Basically, it is a spread operator. So what a spread operator does, it will actually copy the whatever things are there in this initial state. That is an object. It is a product, the actual array. So it will make a copy of this object, and in that copy we are actually replacing the products with the actual products. That is actually a copy from state.products. Okay, and we are actually returning a new object with basically the copy. So this statement is not required. I mean, you can anyway go and you can return the state, and you can modify that actual state with the products, and you can actually add the new products that you have just created. Okay, and in this way, for the change quantity as well, I mean, what we are doing is we are making a copy of the products array, and we are looping the product array, and we are seeing if the product ID whatever passed in the action is the same as the product for the each loop value, then we are actually changing the quantity. And again, we are making a new object where we are copying the actual state, I mean, which is the actual products, and we are replacing the products array with the new array. And similarly, in the remove product, we are filtering the products array after making a copy of it if it's not matching to the ID. I mean, the ID of the product that is there, I mean, we are filtering it out, which is supposed to be removed, and we are actually creating a new object and returning. In the new object, we are first copying the actual array, the actual object, that is the products object, and we are actually replacing the products quantity with the actual products that we have just made. Okay, now the question comes like, why we actually want to make a copy of it? Okay, so I mean, it's not mandatory to make a copy of it, but it's advisable to make a copy of it because whenever a component is having a change detection strategy dot on push, I mean, it's become difficult for an component to actually fetch the new value that has been produced. Here we have a complex the state of an object. Say wherever we are managing a state known as x and which has a property and x1 and y2, I mean, you can anyway go and you can modify. So this is actually our initial state equal to, and you can anyway go and modify our initial state. Sorry for that. You can actually go and modify our initial state which was taken in a state variable. So you can anyway go and modify dot x equal to say 5 and initial state dot y equal to say 10. But what it will do, I mean, any component which has implemented change detection strategy dot on push will not be able to fetch this new value changed by the reducers. Okay, so in those cases, it's advisable to use some another library known as ng store fridge. Okay, so this is another library in the Ngrx store fridge. What it does, basically, when you have implemented this library, it will actually make the state as an immutable, and also whatever value you have passed in the action, okay, this thing as an immutable. So in those cases, it's really becomes necessity for you to make an actual copy, because the original state is immutable, so you need to make an actual copy of the state. And similarly, whatever the values you have passed in the product whatever value you have passed in the action become immutable, so it's actually required to make a copy of the value whatever you have passed in the action as well. So when you use Ngrx store phrase, it basically enables you to write reducer in such a way so that we don't have any impact on the components, and whenever we change any value in the reducer, and it gets actually from the reducer, it should get reflected in the component as well. So we use Ngrx store phrase in our development environment to be consistent on how we develop the reducer, and we want to develop the reducer in such a way that it should not have an impact in the component actually. And Ngrx store phrase is basically used in development environment. We should not use it in production environment, because whenever you're going to use it in a production environment, and if our production environment had made any state as a immutable, and say somehow you are going to modify that immutable state, it's going to give you an exception, and we don't want an exception in the production. Okay, so be sure to use Ngrx store phrase in your development environment, and be sure to modify make a copy of the the initial state. Making a copy can be a very complex things if you have objects within objects within objects, or we have maps of maps of maps. So in these cases specific care has to be made, because what Ngrx store phrase will do, it will make things immutable in the nested hierarchy level. Say for example, I am having object X, it's again having object Y, it's having object Z, it's having object A and 1. So what it will do, when I Ngrx store phrase we have used, it will make this as a immutable, this as a immutable, this as a immutable, and this as a immutable. Entire chain will be made immutable. So you have to make a copy of this, and this copy. So that specific care needs to be taken. Also in case of map of say string of map of string of map of string, if you are making something like that, then all the hierarchy change of this map and this map and this map has been made immutable. So specific care has to be made that how we can copy this, then you can make a copy of actually this, and then you can make a copy of actually this, and then you need to modify the bottom level map, and then in the actual copy of this you need to add the bottom level map. If you want me to make a video of how to modify the state if you have a complex structure when using Ngrx store phrase, do comment me in the comment section. I will be happy to make a video on this topic as well. Now okay, so after making a reducer, what you need to do, you need to import a store module, and you need to actually in your component, basically ng module, in the imports array you need to write this statement for a store module dot for root, and you need to actually pass a reducer. So this becomes important on how you can access your cart state in an entire store. So like we discussed previously, what we really want, like in the bigger store, we are managing two states. One is the cart state, one is the wishlist state. Okay, so this is cart, from where this naming configuration came from cart, that we need the cart state to be managed to be called as cart, and the wishlist state to be managed called as wishlist. So this configuration goes here basically, since you have a specified cart and you are passing a reducer known as product reducer. So now whatever products array that we had, that the product reducers was basically managing will come as a part of a cart object, and this cart is nothing but in a bigger level object, that is nothing but a kind of a store. So yeah, now so in this case we have added this reducer as at a app level module, and we can also add it in a feature module. So in the case of feature module, how you're supposed to add that? So in the root module basically, or the app module basically, you don't need to pass anything in the store module for root, where we actually pass the cart and the product reducer, I mean you just keep it empty and you just start an empty object. So what it will do, I mean it will create a store, I mean global store, without having any property known as cart, or the state known as cart state, or the state known as cart, which will be managing the our products. And since you will be having another module known as feature module, you can add that reducer in the actual feature module. So in the case of feature module, I mean you can add that reducer in this way, I mean store module dot for feature, and this is actually the name, I mean that we will be actually accessing it with in the bigger store, and it is actually the reducer that is managing this state, and this reducer is actually managing the product. So we have products in the cart state basically. Okay, so these are nothing but the syntax of how you can add a reducer at a application module level or at a feature module level. Okay, so let's jump to the code basically. So this is the code that we have written, I mean whatever we have just covered in our presentation is just the exact same code that we have just written. So let me go and let me run it for you. So as you can see, I have an application module, okay, where I am accessing the cart state with the name of cart and actually passing the product reducer. So I have written a product reducer for it. Okay, so the product reducer will be managing all the actions. Basically the actions are add product, change quantity, and the other one will be remove product. Okay, and if none of the actions is being performed, we are actually returning the default state. Okay, so these are the reducers, and we have also created the actions, whatever actions we have just discussed, right, to add a product, to remove a product, to update a product, basically to update the quantity of the product. Okay, and in the reducers, as you can see, what it is doing is it's managing initial state, product state, the product state, and it's assigning an initial value to the product state. So let's go and see what our product state looks like. So product state is basically an interface which is containing nothing but a products array. So this is what our reducer is managing, that is nothing but a products array. So as you can see, I mean a reducer is managing a product state which is nothing but a products array, and what are the initial state that we have assigned to the reducer is an empty products array. Okay, and we have also created the products that will be added to the array, that will be having the product ID, the product name, and the product quantity. Okay, so let's run it and let's see how things will perform. So this is a default Angular application that I just took, and I have added a add product to dispatch an action. So let's look at the component. So this is the product.component, and what it's doing, it's in the add product button. So I have created a button basically, and on the click of it, it's calling a function known as add product. So this function will get called add product, and what I am doing is I'm actually passing a new product, and I am actually dispatching an action that is nothing but an add product. So this is the action that is being dispatched, and in the reducer in the line number 18, you can see that what are the new state. So I'm doing the same thing, I'm making copy of it, I'm making a new product, and actually adding the new product that we have just made to the copy of products array, and we are making copy of the initial state, and we are replacing the products property with the new products array. So okay, so as you can see, I have added a new product, I have added a new products that push. Okay, so I have printed the initial state, that is the initial state that was having a empty product array. Let me print a new state. Okay, and let me rerun the application. Okay, so this is the new state, and let me rerun the application. Okay, now you can see a new product has been added to the product array with the ABC, product name, and the product quantity. Okay, and if I will run this application n number of times, and I will click and add product, it will produce me the same value. So in this way, our reducers are pure reducers, Okay, and as you can see, our reducer is managing the product state, or basically the cart state, which is having a product, and it's not doing anything else. It's not adding any new value to the observable, and it's not passing any value to the service. It's just managing the cart state. Yeah, so this is what the reducers all about in Ngrx store. Yeah, so we are mostly covered with the reducers, and if you have any questions or if you have any doubts, just do a comment on the comment section, and I will be happy to reply you. And in the next video we are gonna cover the selectors, how we are actually gonna view the data in the component or in the HTML, whatever we have added to our store. So in the cart state in our store we have added a new products, and how we are actually gonna view that product that we have just added on our HTML. So that's basically what selector does. It fetches the value from our store, or from our state that is there in the store. So that's we are going to cover in the next video. Yeah, thanks a lot for this video.